Ladies and gentlemen, the 3 knockdown rule on Triller is in effect. I'm Steve Kim, joined by Mr. Music City, back from Nashville, Mario Lopez.
More on that later in the great city of Nashville with their wacky weather. Thank you very much. It is great to be back. Shout out to Smoking Tim Frazier and Justin Buffalo Knuckles, who I was hanging with in Nashville.
And,
by the way, Tino
on the edit. We've got a lot to talk about. Let's work our way back. We weren't able to talk about this because of your duties, but April 9th, early Saturday morning from the land of the rising sun, St. Thomas Super Arena on the Zone, and your new IBF/WBA middleweight title is now being held by this man, Gennady Golovkin, stopping the game-tough Ryoto Murata, stopping him in 9. Mario, I'd say it like this. Do I think that Golovkin is the Triple G of old? Maybe not, but he's not necessarily an old Golovkin.
Physically, Golovkin looked better than ever. My guy's been hitting the gym. He did, the chest was nice and filled out.
Got the Bowflex.
He looked wow.
Maybe the
shake.
Maybe the weight.
Reference right there.
Shake weight. You know.
Yeah. All right. Just calm down, old timer. So I thought physically he looked great. His chest filled out. He looked like he really was bursting at the seams at 160. But it was like that car that looks beautiful, but there's a lot of miles on that odometer and doesn't exactly run the same. I don't know if he goes up to 168, he'll fill out a little bit more. Maybe he doesn't drain himself, because to me, now of course he's been out of the ring for a while, the first few rounds, it took him a while to kind of find his distance and get his sort of bearings. But then I thought Murata did a nice job the next 3, sort of kind of making it interesting, and with some sharp counter punches. He was kind of trying to put Triple G back on his heels. But once Triple G did land one flush shot, it sort of gave him like a new breath of confidence, and he relaxed a little bit, and then he started to methodically break him down and be Triple G. Look, to me, he's one of my favorite middleweights in my era that I've gotten to witness, and he was so avoided, as we know, and he didn't get his flowers, as they say, until later on. I still think he's incredibly dangerous, and everyone outside of Canelo, I would still favor him in the middleweights. I really would. Looks like he secured a place to now face Canelo in the third go-around. But look, I think a lot of people think, not just me, he won the first fight. The second fight maybe could have been a draw. A lot of people feel he still did enough to win. But that has definitely been Canelo's biggest opposition, toughest opponent stylistically, and who he's struggled with the most. So it's not a surprise that he waited literally some years to let him get a little older, let him get a little longer in the tooth. And I think this version of Triple G will still give him fits and problems, and the style, I think, will still be just that, a difficult matchup. But I don't think there's enough gas in the tank to really push it over the edge. But because I am a fan, I know it's going to be a big payday, I'm still happy to see that third go-around. And every fight has been really entertaining.
As they say, familiarity breeds contempt, and there's certainly that between these two. And I've said for a while, Golovkin still knows how to touch Canelo more consistently than any other fighter since 2018. Still has an A1 jab. Going back to what happened in Japan, I'm with you. First 4 rounds, you're thinking, interesting. Start of the 5th, Golovkin started to up the tempo, and like you said, the engine still revs, doesn't rev as fast or as long. There are noticeable times whether he lands a combination or takes a punch, for a split second, you could tell he's taking a breath, like he has to reset. It's not just that onslaught where it's just so unrelenting.
Where it was just that, an onslaught, and in that split second and in that breath, those Canelo counters are going to come fast and furious.
Right. It's a game of fractions of inches and milliseconds. And where I thought the fight and the punch that you referenced happened in the 6th round, booming right hand, the gum shield comes shooting out of the mouth of Murata. And from that point on, Golovkin got rolling like a snowball.
Exactly.
Murata was extremely tough in there, Mario.
Really tough. I give listen, not to take anything away from Murata. I thought he fought very, very tough. Was trying to push him back on his heels. I was actually really impressed with his effort.
And you're right. Do I believe that Golovkin-Canelo will be entertaining? Yes. At this stage, is Canelo the clear, solid favorite? Yes. And I said this last year after watching some of these other middleweights do what they did while Golovkin sidelined himself. I'm not going to lie to you. The boxing purist in me, I would much rather see Golovkin stay at 160 and battle the likes of Jermall Charlo, Jaime Munguia, and Boo Boo Andrade. But as they say, money talks.
All three of those fights, if he were to take them, would not be equal to what he's going to make in one fight.
That's the issue.
With Canelo. Well, that's an important issue.
The big issue.
And listen, I think it makes it a little intriguing, too, because I do think he at this stage, because he is 40 now, a little older, and the way he filled out, I think he's kind of killing himself to make 160. I think he'll fill out nicely at 168, may even be a little bit stronger. Canelo, as much as he's been fluctuating his weight, fluctuating at his weight, we always give me an example of when a guy has come down again and it's worked out too well. So that's always interesting. Now granted, 75 to 68 is not that big of a cut when he's probably going to be under 75.
But it's still a cut.
It's still a cut. It's still a cut. Could still play an integral part of the fight. So it makes it, I think, a little bit compelling, because I think the 68 actually bodes well for Gennady.
Yeah, and by the way, before we put this in ink, Chapter 3, I saw Dmitry Bivol in Indio, Coachella about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
He looks good.
Bro.
He looks good.
Let me tell you something.
And the mentality. That's the important thing.
Listen, when I was at the Kovalev-Canelo fight, correct me if I'm wrong, but I had Kovalev ahead.
After 10 rounds, I thought he was in front.
So did I. And then, of course, Canelo. Boom. It was over. Now, we've got a very similar style. Younger guy, faster.
Much fresher.
I would even say fundamentally a little more fluid with a lot of the punches. So it's not out of the question that Bivol could pitch a shutout.
It is certainly not a foregone conclusion. At the very least, stylistically, it's a difficult matchup. One last thing from this card. WBO flyweight title is retained by Junto Nakatani, stopping Ryoto Yamauchi in 8. Talked to Rudy Hernandez, and he said, Steve, I always thought my brother Chiquinito would be the best boxer fighter I've ever had. Junto might be better. I think Nakatani could be the next Japanese star. Just a really solid, good young prize fighter. Mario, also on this night from the Virgin Hotels in Las Vegas, it was showtime. And your new WBC interim junior middleweight champion of the world is one of your favorite fighters, Sebastian Fundora, stopping Erickson Lubin in 9. This kid is an absolute avalanche of leather.
I love this kid. Not just as a fighter, but what a nice guy and what a gentleman. You can't help but like him. He was so sweet afterwards. I love that he's blind and he can't see.
Literally.
Those glasses are so... I'm like, well, how does he find those punches?
That's why he's an in-fighter. He can't box. Can't see anything.
You know what? You might be right. You might be right. My guy's literally squinting when they ask him to look at the monitor for the replay. But he's such a nice guy, sweet guy, but he's a beast in there. And we've already mentioned he's 6'7", and with his range and the way he likes to fight inside. But what I love about him is the high volume output. He loves to fight inside. That beautiful uppercut that he found a home for, dropped him in the 2nd, dealt with a little adversity himself when he got dropped in the 7th. In his interview, he said I wasn't necessarily hurt to the where I was caught with a shot and he automatically went down. I felt a little buzz, so I took the knee just to kind of gather myself. What a composed thing to say, what a mature take on it, and then goes on to stop him, which I totally agree with the stoppage. My man, who fought really well, Lubin, but he looked like Martin Lawrence in
After Tommy Hitman or Get Hitman Hearns.
Yeah,
classic episode.
That was a great episode. He literally looked like that in that episode right there. So I had no problem with the stoppage, but I think this kid's stock just continues to rise. He's shown so many things every time he's gone in there. And where would you say he's ranked now?
Well, he's a top 5 54-pounder.
He's got to be top 5,
and
right?
Winning the WBC interim junior middleweight title means you're next in line at a certain point. It gets you in position to be in position. Now, Fundora to me is like the Venus flytrap, because Erickson Lubin in the first round had a lot of success inside the pocket. Even in the second, it was the wrong thing. I think he had to step and turn. Kevin Cunningham, by the way, tip of the cap for the stoppage. But in the corner, he kept telling his fighter, do not just lay in the pocket in a straight line. You have to keep spinning and turning him, because if you don't, that torrent of leather starts to add up. It's almost like he had too much success offensively, and once it got to a firefight, it became an absolute inferno.
One would think, as an opponent, that you could out-hustle him, because it's going to take a minute to get those arms going, right?
But that's what it's good at, though.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Because you think, no, there's no way he's going to be able to I'll be able to outwork him on the inside. That's what I would think, being out there. And then you get
Mario,
pleasantly surprised, or I should say, you're unpleasantly
it ain't pleasant.
surprised. Not pleasant. Yeah, and you start eating these uppercuts.
These uppercuts are like a hatchet.
Yes.
It's like a hatchet coming out at you. And this fight reminded me a little bit of Tyson Douglas in a sense that one guy was dominating. Then even in the 7th, I thought they were going to maybe throw in the towel. Credit to Lubin. What a great heart. He rallied back. He knocked him down. But as soon as that bell rang,
you're right.
That's his chance. It's over.
He was dominating. You're right. I didn't point out. He was dominating that round.
Yes.
Before he got caught. Yeah, no, Lubin fought with a lot of heart. And that was a great fight. Fight of the night.
And whatever Lubin has left in his prime, I thought was absolutely preserved by a corner man that had compassion and did his job.
Yep.
To wrap it up about Fundora, one of the top 5 matchups or toughest stylistic matchups in all of boxing.
Does he struggle to make that weight? You would think that, or are you hearing he's fine?
He says he's fine.
Wow, it's crazy, huh?
It's amazing that if you think about this, most heavyweights now, if they're 6'3", are considered quote unquote small. He's 2.5 inches taller than those guys and about 90 pounds smaller. That's a praying mantis with boxing gloves on.
Praying mantis, that's exactly it.
And wrapping it up on the night, actually a couple of more cards from San Antonio. Remember,
by the way, that would have been a great nickname.
Yeah,
Sebastian the Praying Mantis Fundora.
San Antonio. Remember the Alamo Dome on the zone. Ryan Garcia with a 12-round decision over Emmanuel Tagoe. He runs his record to 22-0, 119-108 twice. Look, I thought this fight, I'm not going to put too much on Ryan Garcia for one thing. Emmanuel Tagoe, in the old days at the Madison Square Garden, halfway through that fight, Teddy Brenner, the old matchmaker, would have literally said, "Move over, trainer." He would have gotten his ear and said, "Kid, if you don't start standing your ground and throwing punches, you ain't getting paid." But with that said, Ryan Garcia, I want to say it again, it's a mantra, needs to be more active.
Well, look, first of all, I'm going to cut him a little bit of slack because I'm taking my food to go. Was just it was like
he was a drive-through the whole
Indy
night.
500 right there. So it's very hard to look good when your opponent is unwilling to engage. So I'm willing to kind of give him a little bit of a pass because my guy really was doing laps in there. So with that said, I'm kind of glad he got those those rounds in because, like you said, he hasn't been in the ring a lot. And he's starting to call out guys. Before I go into that, and the moments that he did have when he was able to kind of let it down. I think Goose, and I don't know if you spoke with him, but I'm sure he was glad that wasn't just a blowout too, and he was able to kind of get some round ins. And you have to have a dance partner that's willing to engage in order for you to apply any sort of offense.
That was a solo act.
It was a solo act. I would have liked to have seen him cut off the ring a little better though. That could have I think helped matters. It seemed like he is now in a better place and is talking about being more active. And I like the people that he's calling out, which seem a little more realistic with Isaac Cruz.
And we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, so I'm happy with that. So, look, he did what he was supposed to. He won. Yes, we wish it was more entertaining. But he keeps talking about fighting at least 3 times this year. Let's hope that's the case.
If they do that, tip of the cap. Because you can't fight every year plus. No matter how hard you train, no matter how many training camps you go through, you need live competition. I did speak to Joe, and Joe said, my recommendation has been, let's get going. Not just one fight this year. Let's go twice. The other thing is, though, this is the reality.
3 times. Well, 3 times is realistic.
Since they signed that 10-fight greatest contract ever for a prospect deal near the end of 2018, every single negotiation with Golden Boy has been a battle.
I know.
It's been a contract holdout. It's been a tug of war. At a certain point, the brain trust of Garcia has to say, before we start building your brand and your business, we also have to fortify you as a prize fighter. This is what I notice about Ryan Garcia. He's a great, like a drag racer. First 100 miles per hour out of the first blocks, he's like, whoa, explosive, fast. But then as it gets to the open road, you start to see the technical flaws. They're going to have to work on that. Ryan Garcia has a lot of physical abilities, but do not mistake that for technical acumen. Again, bad style, but if you really want to be serious about this, Mario, and you have the red line to De La Hoya, let's get him back in August or September, finish it out in December.
Well,
boom.
That believe me, Golden Boy wants to do that more than anything. And Oscar always points out, at his age, he was fighting 5 times a year.
Yes, he did. 1997.
5 times a year.
12-round fights, by the way.
Exactly. But Oscar wanted those fights. you start getting people in your ear saying you deserve this, deserve that, and then those sort of fights get delayed, and then they end up not happening because time goes by. He seems to be in a good place. Talking about 3 times a year. Let's hope it happens.
Also, on this night, ESPN from the hangar in Costa Mesa, California, your IBF/WBO female junior lightweight champion of the world is Michaela Mayer, pounding out a 10-round decision over Jennifer Hahn, and Giovanni Santien with a stoppage in 7 rounds over Giovannis Barraza. Mario, you know, everyone's talking about this fight on April 30th between Serrano and Taylor. I love the back and forth thing, and I hope it doesn't get bogged down the way a lot of men's fights have with sides of the street, promotional rivalries. But Miss Mayer against Miss Baumgardner, I'd love to see that fight. I would love. That's a female fight I would actually put on the chalkboard and say, wish list.
First time I've heard you get excited
There's
about
a first
female
for everything.
Fight. Yeah,
first for everything.
exactly.
But
It's been a good year for females.
Yes.
In the sport of boxing. So yeah, I'd like to see it too.
Also on this night, you saw my setup at the Fight Central, Whittier, California. My buddy Hugo Cortez. Shout out Montebello High School, Harvard of East LA. We also had on the big screen, since he paid for that, UFC 273. And I want to say one thing.
Good for you that you watched that. I watched that.
Alexander Volkanovski, he had the best looking right hand I saw all night. And it was a rough night for us Koreans. Jennifer Hahn loses, and now the Korean zombie. Not a good day for my cousins.
He was a replacement, by the way.
Yeah, but
just so you know. But Volkanovski, yes,
he's tough.
He's tough. I don't even think that was the best fight of the night, though. He's tough. What's so impressive about him is the styles that he's facing. My guy used to play rugby, and he was walking around at 240. And I have to show you a picture.
He lost 100 pounds.
He literally lost 100 pounds and now fights at 145. Incredibly inspiring.
Why is he not hawking a diet supplement?
Isn't that crazy? I mean, what was he eating out there? But to lean into that for a second, the fight of the night for me was Chimaev and Gilbert Burns.
Oh, that was a war.
Wasn't that awesome? And I still think Peter Yan did enough to win in that Aljamain Sterling fight. Do you not?
I want to get into that. I thought it was very close. This is what I saw. And again, I'm Steve Kim, MMA.
I had 5 rounds. Do you think
it was 5? Okay.
Yeah, I had it 3 rounds to 2.
I think the swing round was the first. Most of the first, it seemed to me like Jan was the aggressor.
Correct.
The second half, I think Sterling turned it around. That seems to be the right. Because 2 and 3, I thought Sterling clearly won. 4 and 5, I gave to Jan.
See, that's exactly why I had it, Kim. Very good. And look, you can't. Yeah, I don't like in close rounds. You have to lean towards the guys who are initiating the action. I think so. When we're trying to actually make the fight, you don't get credit for surviving.
No.
And I had it exactly like that. Aljamain, to his credit, did a good job adjusting and wrestling, and then doing a little jiu-jitsu and holding down. Not a lot of damage, but he was effective. So yeah, I had Jan winning the first, and the fourth, and the fifth. I thought he did enough to win.
Now you speak to Dana White.
He's a fight machine.
What are the chances of a rematch here?
Really good. I haven't talked to him about that. He might have to fight one other opponent before that, but I wouldn't mind seeing. I think he deserves an immediate rematch. So yeah, so that Chimaev, Burns, which was fantastic. Another great night, man, for UFC.
All right, moving forward, this past weekend, April 16th from AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, on Showtime pay-per-view, the new WBC, WBA, and IBF welterweight champion of the world is Errol Spence. It's strap season, stopping Yordenis Ugas in 10. Mario, I'm still mystified by Ugas' strategy. He's a boxer who didn't box, and I'll say this about Errol Spence. Years ago, I said he's a lot like Marvin Hagler. Technically sound, hard-nosed, physical fighter who lays bricks. I think his power's a little bit overrated because he's not a one-punch guy, but man, he bruises you up if you lay inside.
Well, here's what I was going to say about Spence, because you're right. As physically impressive as his physique is, because he's huge for that weight class, he's not that Golovkin one-hitter quitter kind of fighter. However, he will be, because guys that I know that have sparred with him, he will be as strong in the 10th round as he is in the first round. His power is consistent. So those shots that you might have been able to block and take in that first round when you're fresh, if that same heat is coming at you,
and
in
he's
the
just
10th,
breaking
11th,
you down.
He's just breaking you down. So he doesn't fade as far as, which is really, really impressive. And he also adjusted different styles to the Sean Porter. Ugas was a different style, and he kept that left hand glued for that right hook. So it was almost at any time, because that shot that Ugas was able to catch Pacquiao with, that sort of looping kind of right hook, he had it, and he kept shaking his glove like, you're going to have to try something else. So he had that, and he was effective on the inside. Ugas had his moments. He had his moments, this and that. And when he buzzed him, it was weird. It was, I think, when the mouthpiece fell and he was kind of looking, he just kind of lost focus or something. Can't be doing that against Terence Crawford. More on that later. But I thought he was able to break him down like he does a lot of his fighters. And I thought he looked good in there. I'm not questioning the accident anymore. I think he's almost essentially back to who he was.
It's the best I've seen him in 2-3 years.
It's the best I've seen him against a really good quality opponent. And he had a really good game plan that he executed. And we're talking about that heat that he's able to bring. Well, he ended up breaking Ugas' orbital bone, which is never good.
First knockout since 2018 when he drilled Carlos Ocampo in 1. Errol Spence had a long jab, also for Ugas. What he found out was, while Pacquiao and Spence are both southpaws, the reach and the length of Errol Spence really neutralized a lot of the things that were effective last August, also the age. Errol Spence, despite the wear and tear, the physical trauma that he had outside the ring, he's a fresher athlete.
Sure, those reflexes are so sharp.
But there were times I'm watching this fight going, Yordenis, you are a boxer. Have you turned your diploma in from the Cuban School of Boxing? I thought for sure, in my view, the way he's going to win the fight was to make sure at times this fight was very boring and tactical, maybe a lot more movement, doubling, tripling the jab, and getting out of there. There were times when he had success, as he said, instead of resetting and circling back, he'd stay right inside, and I'm thinking, you are playing to the wheelhouse.
No,
and he got put through the meat grinder.
Yes, he did. And I love the way Errol Spence fights on the inside. And I think he's also got his confidence and mojo back, too.
Yes.
He's calling out Crawford, all this. I think he's back where he was prior to the accident. And if he's able to stay at that weight class.
There are other fights where he would admit, I had to boil down to make weight. It was a little bit of a fat camp. I saw pictures of him 5-6 weeks ago where it looked like, wow. Change of lifestyle, maybe. A little bit more discipline, and it showed.
Yes.
Also on the undercard, just want to mention, Emmanuel Stanionis with a bruising 12-round decision over the hard-nosed Radzav Butayev. What a fight. He is now a WBA belt holder. I'm not so sure people are going to be running to face him. And also my nephew, Brandon Lee, with a 10-round decision over Zachary Ochoa. Mario, I like him, but I still think he needs a lot of seasoning. That chin needs to come down.
That's
also,
good he got those rounds in.
Right, left hook to the body needs to be added because a lot of guys are going to be like looking for that right hand over the top, but still a good developmental win. Now, this weekend in the afternoon from Wembley Stadium, there's going to be 90,000 plus for the heavyweight championship of the world. The Gypsy King, Tyson Fury, takes on Dillian Whyte. Mario, is it just my American bias or the fact that me and you have been traveling, doing other things? And people have talked about this. There seems to be a little bit of a lack of buzz. Is it because this fight's in the UK?
I don't think so. I mean, on social media, it seems like there's a lot of buzz, and my
really?
British homies are all fired up about it. Yeah, you got to remember, outside of the U.S., it's huge across the pond, and I think the enthusiasm's there globally whenever it is a heavyweight, especially a character like Fury. I think it's a fun fight. I'm looking forward to it, and I like that it's during the day. Because day drinking, that's my deal.
Yeah, and by this undercard, I'm just going to say this. It needs an injection of Butterbean and Mia St. John.
So it's not a UFC type of card.
This ain't exactly revenge the rematches. I'll just put it to you that way.
I love that.
Unless Tyson Fury falls asleep, which he's prone to do once in a while, if he controls things from the outside with that long, educated left, look, Dillian Whyte might have his moments. I like Tyson Fury. You got to go with the chalk here, don't you?
Of course. Now, Eddie Hearn could just be promoting, but he likes Dillian Whyte big.
Well, that's his promoter.
I know, but he doesn't have to lie if that's not how he feels.
He's a promoter. That's their job to lie, Lopez.
See?
All right, so if Tyson Fury wins, the expectation is that he'll face the winner of the rematch between Anthony Joshua and Alexander Usyk. When we come back, we wrap it up with Ask Mario and Final Flurries. And we're back on the 3 knockdown rule on Triller. We go to the Ask Mario segment of this fine program from John Herndon, Storyteller. How do you and Mario view Spence versus Crawford now? It's a legitimate 50-50, in my opinion.
Really, really hope that fight happens. And it could be, here's the thing. Really want the fight to happen, but I actually think it could be somewhat boring. Isn't that crazy? I don't think it delivers. I really don't. I'm going to tell you why.
Huh.
Let me hear my whole full out deal here. Spence, who I think now is shaking off the cobwebs, is physically back where he wants to be. He's got a lot of confidence with that stoppage. I think he knows the talented, dangerous opponent in front of him, and he's going to try to stink out the joint. I don't think he's going to sit there and try to grind it out like with an Ugas. Like he did a la Mikey Garcia, I think he's going to give him a lot of respect. Pardon me. With that said, no one is better at adjusting more to situations than Terence Crawford. And I still like Terence Crawford, but I don't think it's a gimme. Because Terence, you got to remember, a little older too. Who knows when he's going to those
35.
Yeah, little. So who knows? Not old, but not a kid either. So who knows when those reflexes might shine a little bit. And we talked or dim a little bit. And we talked about how in the split fraction of a second that in this sport at this level with elite fighters like that makes a big difference. I still like Crawford a lot on this fight. When my guy was picking up, he deadlifted 450 in like jeans and sneakers like nothing. I'm like, oh, he got that corn-fed Nebraska strength right there.
Strength.
I didn't realize he was so. I didn't realize he was so naturally strong.
It's called wiry strength.
Dude, he picked that up like nothing, and he was just messing around. I go, oh damn.
Yeah.
So no wonder he's knocking these fools out when he's such a good closer, because he's got that natural strength, and he's got that mean streak combined with all that skill. Whoo, very dangerous. I think the physical attributes of Spence will still pose a lot of issues for him to even. I think he might still out-hustle him. I'm not opposed to 50-50, maybe even 60-40. I'd lean towards Crawford, to be honest, but I still think it is a very tough fight. But I do think, unfortunately, Spence will try to stink out the joint. It's the only way he can win. He's not going to.
You think he's going to try to outbox a master boxer?
I think he's going to try to keep him at bay. I think he's going to try to keep him at bay and have him walk into something. I don't think he's going to get in there and start fighting on the inside like he did a la Ugas. I don't think that bodes well for him. Am I wrong?
There are parts of that fight where I'm watching and I'm thinking, if that was Crawford in there instead of Ugas, Crawford would be letting his hands go with mean, bad intentions.
Exactly. That's why I don't think he's going to give him the opportunity to do that.
The other issue is, many times,
I hope I'm wrong, by the way. I hope I'm wrong.
Errol Spence has the advantage of being a southpaw in many instances in his fights because of the stylistic thing, right? Well, who's a better switch hitter than Terence Crawford, who immediately takes that away with his own southpaw stance?
Exactly. It's interesting. That's what I'm saying. It's for the adjustments. Well, like I said, I still like Crawford in this fight, but I also think it's, like Herndon just said, it is a very competitive fight because I think he's young, athletic enough, savvy enough to kind of try to stake out the joint and maybe try to steal rounds. I don't think he's going to want to engage like he does in Ugas. Oh, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm dead wrong. And maybe he'll want to prove something and we ended up getting an entertaining, great fight. But I don't know.
As you said about the versatility, I have named Terence Crawford the boxing amoeba. He can adjust and adapt to anything.
I love me some Crawford. You know that.
Next question from our dear Watson. Do you see Isaac Cruz as a hype job? I'm not sold on him at all. Something is a legit contender. He's 5'4" and wings every punch.
He's exciting to watch.
He's fun to watch.
He's fun TV, and I think he's effective with his little style. Would I like to see him versus Ryan Garcia? Yes. I'd like to see that. That'd be a great little fight. Who do you favor?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Is that a pick 'em? Is that a 50-50?
Yes, and I'll tell you why.
Really?
Early rounds, the speed and the length of Ryan would dominate. But as the fight...
But he might catch him early, though.
But it also may hit rounds 5 and 6. And the one thing I could see happening is that Ryan is still very upright. He doesn't ever bend his knees, and he's always on his heels.
So that Salido-type punches,
from the instant you just launch.
Yes.
And here's the thing.
That's a fun fight to watch.
And who's overhyping Pitbull? Look, he went neck and neck with the very good Tank Davis.
Right.
He scored some knockouts. Look, here's another thing. Please, no more Yuri Gamboa. No more Francisco Vargas. Yeah. Guys, we're going to get someone hurt in there if it hasn't already happened. Gamboa, when he lost to Robinson Castellanos like 3-4 years ago on a Golden Boy undercard the weekend of Golovkin Canelo, I said back then he should be retired.
Dude, after Crawford.
Right.
No, it was already that.
That was 2000. That was his first loss, though. In all fairness, that was 2014.
No, but after that, my point is, I didn't think it was the same.
Yeah,
is what I'm saying. After that, fight.
As I like to say, he's been on the logo more than the Tecate or canvas more than the Tecate logo.
And he was an exciting guy in his prime.
What he was look, he was kill or be killed, for lack of a better term. Here's one from Jay Allen: is the potential Spence versus Crawford fight the most anticipated fight at welterweight since De La Hoya Trinidad? Any others come to mind, Pacquiao? Mayweather notwithstanding, since it was past its sell date.
De La Hoya Trinidad was number one for me, both in their prime, both world champions, both undefeated.
26 years old, by the way. People
Yes.
completely overlook that. But the fight itself,
No. But I'm saying as far as
the hype.
and the buildup and the way they matched each other, I don't think it got bigger than that. Because by the time we saw Pacquiao and Mayweather, had that happened, that would have been at the time it was supposed to.
No doubt.
But at the time we saw them, they're long in the tooth, and you always wonder kind of what if. Even Crawford Spence, I think, is a little later than, it's not the prime that there's like when De La Hoya and Trinidad met, but it'd probably be the closest, I would say, right?
Yes.
I'd probably say it's the
You know how
closest right now.
confident I am in that fight happening and hopeful? Notice the sideburns here, Lopez? It's kind of growing. Come on.
Oh wow!
I mean, that's
I like that.
Yeah, I'm a
Because
man of my word.
I think both fighters, their brand will be hurt if for some reason it doesn't happen. I really do. I think at this point,
Errol
there's
Spence.
no reason. And then with a call out, now you put it out there.
Errol Spence says it's strap season. He's got 3 of the 4 belts.
Is it strap season?
Terence Crawford is no longer with Bob Arum. I don't know if he's on the right side of the street, but he ain't on the other side of the street. And he ain't no chicken. He'll cross the road. Let's make this fight now.
Love it.
Oh, here's a strongly worded missive from one Ivan Mendez. Until Mario, makes his tortas available in L.A., his Dodger fan card is revoked.
Cold as ice. It is available in LA. What are you talking about? It is available in LA. You just got to go through Grubhub to get Mario's Tortas.
I've had trouble getting them too.
Ooh.
Oh, you've had trouble getting them too, Frazier?
Like here in LA, sometimes they're not available on Grubhub.
Yeah, some of us still go to brick and mortar here, Lopez. We don't all get everything delivered to us.
Well, unfortunately, that's how you get the tortas. It's one of those virtual sort of restaurants. I'm going to have to look into that. But I know people have gotten them. I've gotten them. And
high quality stuff, man.
It is high quality, right? By the way, you haven't tried my micheladas yet, huh?
I'm gonna have to. Maybe this
you
weekend.
like micheladas. You get a torta with a michelada.
Oh my God,
that's the combo.
I'm full Steve Mexican at that point,
right?
I mean, okay, this Saturday. Let me know if you're home.
Hey, that's Saturday. Then we go see some Yachtly Crew.
Órale.
More on that.
Yeah. Ryan Longer asked, if Spence versus Crawford were to happen, where would you like it to take place?
Vegas. How can it take place anywhere else? That makes the most sense. You can make it a fun weekend out of it and
I have an idea.
Party it up. I mean, unless you're going to be selfish and say here in L.A.
I have an idea. The Raiders have this $1 billion new park. They've talked about fights.
That idea.
The pandemic kind of ruined a few.
Is that big enough for that? Do you think? I think it would have to be Canelo.
Oh, what if you have $20 tickets?
I mean, yeah, it just seemed for a stadium fight, you would need the biggest star in the sport. So it would have to be either Canelo or a Fury or a Joshua or something like that. I don't think they're stadium ready. I think T-Mobile's big enough, though.
You know, one thing I don't like about a lot of these fights, and we go back to the Trinidad De La Hoya fight, one thing I was morally opposed
Mandalay
to.
Bay, I remember that happened.
Not a single ticket went to the public because everything went to the players. I'm thinking, wait a minute, why do we do this to our fans? We're the only, it's like the Super Bowl. It's not for football fans. And for a fight, you're right. And for a fight like Crawford Spence, which have rabid fan bases, why not just put it in a place where if you want to plunk down 25 to 50, if you want to see you're there, get your Hubble telescope, you can enjoy the atmosphere. I think boxing does a terrible job of servicing its fans in many ways.
But a lot of sports at the highest levels do that.
They do.
In that respect. Super Bowl, like you said, the World Series, they're all a bunch of corporate guys.
Right, but they don't have pay-per-view events either. It's a little bit different dynamic.
No, I agree. I wish they would show them a little bit more love. It'd just be all around better.
And here's one from Matthew Euros. Who are the young guys coming up through the LA gyms right now, whether amateur or young pros, who we need to put on the radar as guys to watch? I got one. Ruben Ace Torres, a young man that I've called since the beginning of his pro career.
Okay.
From Thompson Boxing. He is a stick of dynamite. And he's only 22, 23 years old right now. He could punch through walls. Thompson Boxing has a track record. Jose Cito Lopez. He's about 35, but one day he'll be a welterweight. And so, look, they've had Jose Cito Lopez. They helped develop Chris Arreola. They had Tim Bradley. They nurtured Danny Roman.
Yeah.
They're the best club show in America. I can honestly say that whether I was getting a paycheck from them or not. Mario, final flurries. What was Nashville like the last few weeks?
It was action-packed, very busy. Shot my latest holiday film out there, which and you know I'm producing as well as acting in it. So so like I literally go 12 hours or longer sometimes nonstop. But on the weekends, got to hang out a little bit, and then of course went to dinner at night. So it was just a vicious cycle of working, having some food. And we drank every night, of course, and then we come back and do it all over again. What a great town, great people. It's pretty. Craziest weather I've ever seen in my life. It'd be like 75 and sunny one day, literally one day, and they'd be hailing the next, light snow. We had 2 tornadoes.
Really?
In 3 weeks. I'm all tornado?
There's tornadoes in Nashville.
Yes, we had to stop production 3 hours early one time because the tornado was coming through. And it was crazy. I'm like, yo, now I know why everything's so expensive in LA. So I don't have to deal with that crap. It's crazy. So I was like, in that 3 weeks, I was like, I saw all 4 seasons over and over. That was the only thing that was great. But I love when you go down Broadway, they're sort of downtown right there. They call it Music City for a reason. There was a band on every floor and every bar, and they were all good. It was fun, man. We had a great, great time.
When I went to go on the Fearless set with Jason Whitlock in early October, I remember you were in Vegas for the Fury Wilder fight. The weather was mild. It's just 75 degrees for all 4.
When was this?
Early October.
Oh, early October. That'd probably be a nice time of year to go. Yeah, when you go in the spring, you don't know what you're getting.
It's interesting. A lot of people in LA or businesses, media companies, they've been moving to Nashville. It's a hub. I spent my weekend in Miami. Very nice time. By the way, there's an old joke about Miami. If you don't like the weather, wait 15 minutes. Literally, I was at some place where we just barely made it, and we're at the Yard House eating. 5 minutes later, Mari, I've never seen a torrential downpour like this.
Well, you're practically in the tropics, though. That's understood. I didn't think Tennessee would be like that.
No, but then 5 minutes later, I turn around, dry. Yeah, sky's clear.
Well, that's Hawaii. That's any tropical. Mexico. That's any tropical place. I get that, but I heard you were hanging out in strip clubs. Here's
what happened. We couldn't.
What happened. You fell into one.
No. We couldn't find a place to watch the fight. Now.
Oh, I couldn't find a place to watch the fight.
Boxing is the truth. And so the guy that I'm staying with, his brother, runs the VIP lounge. We had the hookup, and I don't want to name the establishment.
Name the establishment if he's your brother. Give him a shout out.
Until they want to sponsor us. But anyway, it's pretty famous in South Florida. So they said, we're going to order the fight for you. And I said, well, thanks. That's nice. And it was pretty distracting. I'm not going to lie. Pretty expensive, too. But anyway, here's the
Look
interesting
at you, Kim, hanging out in strip clubs.
I'm in South Florida.
Dang.
But here's the other issue. Why does boxing make its product so hard to find? Because I had friends trying to say, like, maybe watch the fight here. They're not getting fight. Watch the fight there. We haven't ordered a fight in 10 years. You go to UFC, it's literally in every major shop or chain. Why? Cost.
So I saw it not at a strip club, but I was at a bar, and I convinced the owner I offered to buy the app. He ended up doing it for the DAZN app. So I had the DAZN. This was when the Laugh UFC event with Volkanovski and Garcia were fighting at the same time. So I got to watch both of them at the same time. Not with any sound, because we were in a bar, so all the music's going, but I got to see them both at the same time. So the DAZN, the apps are easier. If it's pay-per-view, it's a whole nother thing. It's impossible to watch.
It's a good format. Yeah, they do a good job.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying you can't just go to the bars and order.
You can't.
The boxing pay-per-views, the UFC, you can. The boxing ones, for some reason, you can't. They don't want to get it. Gets very expensive for them.
It is. Well, what they do is in an establishment, whether it's a strip club or TGIFs or Tony Roma's, they have a formula where they take a look at the size of your room and the capacity, and it becomes a mathematical thing. I did a story on this about 4 or 5 years ago, still at UCN Live. The head or one of the managers of the Commerce Casino, name was Tony Santa. He was in charge of purchasing things for the bar. And he said, I'm not going to lie to you, Steve, I'm a big boxing guy, but boxing makes it much harder for me to get costs approved to show their fights as opposed to UFC. Now, one thing that he told me, the UFC gives you a package. If you want every single UFC pay-per-view for the whole year, they'll hook you up with a discount.
Okay, smart.
Boxing, you've got all these different factions, and it gets real cost prohibitive, and less, because my friends have told me, Steve, it is much easier when you're out on the town to find a place to watch UFC than boxing.
You're exactly right. I was getting to watch it on my phone, but then I finally convinced him, and he ended up putting it up there, so I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, and I also went to the Miami Spring game, got a little sunburn. You know what? You got to pack your sunscreen when you're in Miami. Mario Cristobal doing a hell of a job. It's going to take a little time, though. But anyway, I want to thank everyone that made this show possible. Good to see you back there, Mr. Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. King.
On behalf of Tim Frazier, Justin Buffalo Knuckles, and Tino on the edits, this has been the 3 Knockdown Rule on Triller. Goodbye, everybody.